On today's Palace of Pistons podcast, yes, that's right. We've got former University of Michigan and Cleveland Cavaliers head coach John Beilein on the show to talk about the Detroit Pistons signing both Duncan Robinson and Caris LeVert. We talk about those two players, what they're going to bring to this team, all that and more for what was a great interview with a basketball mind that I could probably talk to for several hours and still have plenty of more to talk about. We also don't go anywhere after are back with Mike and I just for some general discussion on the fallout from the Malik Monk, Dennis Schroder sign-in trade saga, as well as a little bit of talk previewing the Summer League for Detroit, which kicks off on Friday night. So hope you enjoy the show. Stick around, have some fun, and let's get into another edition of the Palace of Pistons podcast.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another exciting night of NBA basketball.
The Pistons are digging in. They got the depth. They got the big men. They got the better basketball team. No doubt about it.
Pistons need a three, and they have just under 3 seconds to do it. Here's Chauncey Billups. Here it is. He's got it. He's got it. Chauncey Billups hits the three. Overtime. Amazing. Out of bounds. Detroit basketball.
All right, and joining us now on the Palace of Pistons podcast, a very special guest, former head coach of the Michigan Wolverines and Cleveland Cavaliers. It's head coach John Beilein. John, thanks so much for joining the show. How are you today?
Thanks. I'm doing fine. Enjoying summer in Michigan.
There you go. Summer in Michigan is beautiful. I know the Michigan weather gets a lot of hate at times for the tough winters, the inconsistency in the winter and in the spring, but man, there's nothing like a Michigan summer. It's the best. So
No,
to hear that.
I'm up north in Petoskey too on Walloon Lake, so it's a great place to be this time of year.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, obviously you're enjoying the summer, but you have been a long time hero, I would say, in the state of Michigan for the job that you did, really reigniting the University of Michigan basketball program and taking them to the success that they enjoyed under your reign. You've sent several players to the NBA, but outside of enjoying the summer up in Petoskey, what's John Beilein up to nowadays?
You know what? I do a lot. I did Big Ten Network this past year, and then I also worked for University of Michigan Medicine.
Okay.
I'm an advisor and leader in culture building, leadership training, teamwork, and fundraising. And so I do that 1 week a month for 12 months a year that I just dedicate myself to just helping Michigan medicine in any way I can. So it's been good. I do some other speaking engagements on leadership and teamwork and sort of enjoy that. Sort of my niche right now.
Awesome. Well, hey, that's great to hear, staying busy, and that's awesome that you're still here in the state and doing things to support the state that obviously was a big part of your career. So awesome. And when the Pistons came out and it was announced that they were signing both Caris LeVert and Duncan Robinson, really back to back, they happened within a day or two of one another. It was one of the first thoughts that came into my mind is who would be better to talk about these two players and the impact that they've had and can have, not in their NBA career now in the past, but also with the Detroit Pistons now, than you yourself. I mean, you coached them at Michigan. You obviously have seen them grow from, Caris, who was a late bloomer in the recruiting level, and Duncan, who came in from a Division III program. You've seen them grow from those young kids to now veteran NBA players. I guess just starting this off, what were your first impressions, those first thoughts that came in your head when you found out that the Pistons were bringing both Duncan and Caris in?
Well, I was very, very happy about it because I've remained close to both of them. Uh, this year, actually, when I was down in Naples, where I live in the winter, I got over to see Duncan. I was going to see Duncan and Caris play against each other. Caris got hurt, and we go out to dinner ahead of time. So I just got to have dinner with Duncan because Caris didn't make the trip. But Caris called me a day before signing, just asking some questions about the Pistons, and I'm happy. I'm happy for both. You know what's striking, Aaron, is that here it is. People are drafting and trying to find all these 19, 18-year-old phenoms in the first round. There's a 5-year player and a 4-year player, that are now in what their 7th or 8th year in the NBA, always been in the rotation. I just said thinks a lot about being Red Berenson, the hockey coach at Michigan, used to say you want to be over prepared when you get your opportunity in the NHL. I think it's very similar for many players in the NBA. They can stick if, in fact, they're prepared well enough. And these two were. Once they got their opportunity, they just roll right into it.
Yeah, and I think you make a really interesting point. I mean, Duncan and Caris have both had long tenured NBA careers. When you compare it against some of these guys that come out after
Yep.
1, 2 years at the college level, and then they end up only making it through that first rookie contract, and they don't get another chance because they haven't developed or they haven't reached that peak that these NBA teams might see them reaching. Uh, you saw these guys at their college level. And you coach them. Did you see like this type of potential in these guys in Karis and
I
Duncan?
mean, when Karras first came to us, he was 6'6" and weighed about a buck 40.
Yeah.
And by the time and then with his two injuries, I really was foot injuries, same foot, same bone. I was really worried that he wouldn't be able to play beyond college. But thanks to the Brooklyn Nets and a great orthopedic surgeon, they were able to save his career by operating on that foot and making it better. So that I worried about that. And Duncan, I thought would become a great European player. I mean, a long time tenure NBA or European player, but he got a chance with Miami and he did, and he just made it work. Glenn Rice is the guy that a scout for a Michigan player and scout for the Heat. He believed a lot in Duncan, and Duncan believes a lot in himself now. And so he's made it work. And now he's on his 3rd contract, as is Karras. This is special that people can make it that long.
It really is, and both these guys look to step into pretty key roles with the Pistons. I mean, you look at what Detroit lost from last year's team: Malik Beasley, Dennis Schroder, who was playing some point guard for them after the trade deadline, and then obviously another Wolverine who had a really, really good season starting for Detroit in Tim Hardaway Jr. I mean, what do Karras and Duncan bring to this young core of Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Asard Thompson, Jalen Duren? I mean, what can they
Yeah.
bring as veterans to this team?
In the 3 years that I was in the NBA, one big observation, one big change from college is your bench is so important to you. With the number of games and the length of the game, it was actually something I had trouble adjusting to. How do you play 10 people and keep them all happy? These are two guys, whether they're starting or coming off the bench, understand their role in whatever they're given. And as a result, they've been able to flourish because how can I help the team? How can I help the team? How can I help the team? Instead of how can I help myself? And that's what gets so many players in trouble. But if you do not have that type of attitude, uh, people pick up on that. The coaches, the general manager, and you're not for long in the NBA. These two will be whatever role they're called upon, they'll do it and do it best because they're going to be prepared. They've prepared themselves in college and these last 7 or 8 years in the NBA to be the best version of themselves. And there's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of dedication involved, but they've done it. They've done it very well. Sorry about the sneeze, Aaron.
You're good, coach. And look, from coaching at both the college and NBA level, whether it's, having a bunch of freshmen and sophomores on your team, or, when you're in the NBA and you have a bunch of guys that were drafted in the last 2, 3, 4 years, the importance of having veterans, having guys that have
Yeah.
played in the league, have seen it, have played in the playoffs. I mean, you look at what Detroit did last year as a team. They kind of shocked the world with the turnaround that they had from the year prior. And they go into the playoffs and they actually have a pretty pesky first round series against the Knicks. Obviously, they come up short, but how does replacing some of what they lost in guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley, bringing in Karras and Duncan, how does that help Detroit take that next step? Not just staying status quo as a first round team, but potentially being able to go on a little bit of a run in the playoffs and continue to take the next step as an organization.
I think this year there was a learning curve for everyone with a new coach and how we're going to play. Karras has already played for JB before in Cleveland, so that's helpful. And Duncan is just so adaptable to because he's a shooter. And I think my hope is that JB will use him more like Miami's used him, because I didn't use him enough like that, where he's on the run. Like I said, he's like John Havlicek. He's on the move all the time. And as soon as you turn your head, they find the ball, the shot is up. Where Caris is more, I'll come off the bench, I'll start, but I get in 2 feet in the lane. I'm going to play really solid defense, and then I'm going to get 2 feet in the lane again and pivot my way to either a basket or an assist. So these two, just whether they're coming off the bench or not, they're going to play their role and play it really well, because that's their specialty. Really, that's what's kept them in the league this long.
Yeah, I think, just looking at the Duncan signing, I think it was a great get for Detroit. I think putting a shooter like that on the court with a playmaker like Cade Cunningham, who is going to command a ton of attention from the defense, but now teams have to worry about Duncan Robinson open in the corner, or coming off a screen, or getting the ball off a DHO. I think it's going to add a really strong element to Detroit's offense. But coach, do you want to take some of the credit for the shooter that Duncan Robinson is? Is that
No.
a testament to the Beilein ball that you guys were using at Michigan?
Duncan came in, and from the get go, only he and Nick Stauskas came in. We have a bunch of we do competitive shooting every day at game speed for about 25 minutes every day in practice, and we never let them shoot where there's not a competitive element to them. Never. And then we have the Beilein ball out there just so they're always getting their hands ready as quick as they can and getting their feet ready as quick as they can, because it will show if you don't have great rotation, you probably didn't have great shot prep. So it's something that we work on every single day. But to be honest with you, with Duncan, there wasn't anything to do except teach him how to shoot it quicker and and a little bit on the move. But he's taken that to a whole new level,
Hmm.
because that's what he does. He ends up just adapting. When he came to Michigan, he was not quick enough yet. So what did he do? He spent every living moment in the weight room just trying to get quicker. And that's what he does. I got to get open better. I got to find ways to get open. That's where DHOs, and he's separating and getting fouled or getting a shot up through separation, is something I didn't do enough with him. So I'm taking no credit for Duncan. Duncan deserves all that credit.
Well, I want to stick on the Beeline ball for a second, because I don't think there are many people in the world that think, how can I modify and improve the ball that is used in a sport nationwide and has been used for decades? So tell me a little bit about, like, what went into thinking and coming to mind with the idea of creating this
Well,
basketball and the focus that it has on shooting.
yeah, but I was a very bad shooter in high school and in college, frankly. And I became fascinated with shooting once I began coaching. So I used to take a magic marker and put it around the ball so that I could watch a few players who I knew did not have great rotation on it. And then when all of a sudden I was at West Virginia and we were at a higher level, uh, a ball called the Rock said, "Why don't we make this line on it for you? So you have a basketball, call it the Beilein. We'll put it right around the middle." So we did that. We did it, and they sold it and sold about 1,000, maybe. And now we ordered another 1,000, which is different. It's got Beilein written differently. But
Okay.
I tell you, we had 12 on our rack. Every shot we took in competitive uh, practice was with that ball, so I could always see it. So it's important to me. You get your feet right and you get your hands right immediately before the shot, and that takes training.
Well, coach, I in my spare time I help coach a youth team. It's one of the things that I see is one of the real struggles with teaching basketball to younger people nowadays is shooting and shooting form and the
Yeah,
importance of shooting right. I mean, can people go out and buy these still? Are they still
yeah,
available to purchase? I'm
yeah.
gonna need to get a couple for my team.
Yeah. One of the reasons we don't sell them is I don't talk about it very often. But if you just Google Beeline basketball, you'll find a way to get to the website where they're sold with as part of the new. There's a new basketball that was developed by a guy named John Stout called the Goat, and he also sells the Beeline ball. So
Okay.
they could Google the Goat basketball or Beeline basketball and somebody will come up, will lead you to a link where you can buy it. So, but you should buy a dozen, Aaron, if you want your team to get better. They're great. So I had somebody buy 165 the other day. We had people buy 18 last month, 12 last month for their teams. Want every kid to have one because it's important. And it's something you can practice laying in bed at night, sitting in a chair, or actually in the gym.
I will. I'll have to track that link down. I'll include it in our podcast description for anyone that's listening right now and wants to maybe go and buy one for themselves. But Coach, I'll wrap with this. Obviously, your impact at the University of Michigan was very strong. It's really started what I would consider a golden age for the university's basketball program. I mean, it's now a standard that they're sending at least one or two guys into the NBA every year. How proud are you of your time at Michigan and seeing these guys still playing in the NBA or having the careers that they had at the professional level?
Well, I'm extremely proud that we were able to build a program back up to make a basketball program that is similar to the power and the ratings of the university. And so we were able to get that done. Win games was more important than sending guys to the pros. Being great teammates, we made that happen. It's amazing the success we had with 3- and 4-star athletes because we just worked on winning and what winning looks like. And it was amazing when you preach that, you win in the NCAA tournament, you get a lot more notice from the pros and a lot more opportunity. And that's basically what's happened. Guys bought into being a part of a team. And with that, it's amazing that so much. I think there was one second round draft choice in the decade before our decade. And then I think we had 10 or 11 first rounders in the next decade. So it was a really good transition, but it was done with a lot of hard work, great assistance, and guys that just bought in.
Awesome stuff, Coach. Well, we really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. I know people were very excited when the Pistons announced they were signing both Caris and Duncan, and I know people are going to be really excited to hear what you have to say about those two and what they're going to bring to a Detroit Pistons basketball team that is seemingly turning a good corner after what was a pretty rough last decade or so.
No, it's great. And please, Aaron, let's talk again during the season, and we can get updates on what we see with the Pistons. Call me. Let's do it a couple times a year if you'd like.
Hey, I am always down to talk basketball with you, Coach. Thanks so much for jumping on the show today, and take care.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron.
Pistons fans, welcome back to the Palace of Pistons Podcast, part of the Believe Network. I'm your host, Mike Anguilano. Joining me this week is Aaron Johnson. Aaron, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing good. Hopefully the people just enjoyed listening to yours truly speaking with former University of Michigan and Cleveland Cavaliers head coach John Beilein. We focused a lot on the Caris LeVert and Duncan Robinson free agency signings by Detroit, but a lot of good talk in there. Talked a little bit about his Michigan days. Had some fun little stories on both LeVert and Robinson. So hope the people enjoyed that. Hopefully we'll be able to catch up with Coach Beilein again at some point during the season, and we'll hopefully have some more interviews with you, with some great guests joining the Palace of Pistons podcast here in the upcoming future. So I'm doing well. I'm ready to talk a little bit more about the Pistons. I know we've got my favorite time of the year starting up, NBA Summer League.
Favorite time.
It used to be a little bit more exciting when the Pistons had 2 or 3 or 4 lottery picks or first-round picks suiting up for them on the roster. This year it's a little bit different. I guess that's the trade-off with becoming a playoff.
It's a good thing.
Playoff team. Yeah, it is a good thing. So
it's a good thing.
A little bit different this year, but I am still completely enamored with it. I've been watching some Summer League. I watched is it the California Classic now where Utah was playing? Saw a little bit of Miami, a little bit of the Lakers. So I'm excited for it to start, for more of these teams to get into it. I'm super excited to see Cooper Flagg play for Dallas. So yeah, I'm good. I'm ready. Let's jump in here.
Is it Cooper Flagg and Bronny James tonight? Not that
It's
those are comparable prospects in any way.
yeah, right, right. But don't tell that to ESPN's marketing team.
No.
No, they're the first game of the Las Vegas Summer League. So
Okay. So I know there's the Salt Lake class, or there's Utah and California as I think the
okay,
two
okay.
like
So you guys watch.
pre-summer league.
Yeah,
Watch Ace Bailey and VJ Edgecombe, who looks awesome. I mean, VJ looks like future star coming out as a super athletic three. So yeah, will be
Bryce
fun to watch summer league.
Bryce Sensabaugh for Utah looked really good too.
He
He
did.
looked impressive. I mean, there's a
Remember
lot of
Cody
guys that
Williams?
play well in summer league, but
Do you remember Cody Williams and us having to talk about if the Pistons should pick him at 5?
so I'm very happy with myself on that. Not that things can't work out for him, but I was very
Sure.
much in on Cody Williams early on. I definitely pivoted later on in the college season, and then definitely by the time we got to the NBA draft, but not looking great for him yet. You would like to see year 2 summer league for a lottery pick that the game's a little bit easier for him. It's not looking like it yet.
It doesn't look like that. But before we get into any more talk of summer league, because we could just go right off the cuff and just start talking, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor this week, which is nobody. It's just us. It's the Palace of Pistons Substack. So if you have not subscribed to the Substack, please do so. The link to do it is going to be in the description, either on YouTube or in the show notes of wherever you are listening to your podcast. We provide content on a weekly basis. In addition to this podcast, you'll get written content Wednesdays and Mondays, and maybe something else here and there. NBA free agency, happens fast. Something could happen out of nowhere. The Pistons just generated a X dollar amount trade exception that they could. It's basically like a gift card to whoever player they want. So you never know what they could do. And that means we'll have to be writing an emergency article. And the only way you get that directly is to subscribe to our Substack, and you'll get it in your inbox as soon as we hit publish. So please take 5-10 seconds, put your email in, subscribe to our Substack. We really appreciate it. We've gotten a lot of support. I mean, and it just keeps growing. Even during the slower months, there's still people subscribing. So we'd love to keep that number going. And we really appreciate all of that support, because we have to talk about Summer League, and we have to talk about Dennis Schroder and the weirdest saga maybe of free agency, where there was reports of a sign and trade and no sign and trade and a sign and trade and no sign and trade. And then finally there wasn't a sign and trade for anything of consequence. The Pistons ended up generating just a trade exception, which, like I said, is basically a gift card. There was talk of getting Malik Monk. I don't think there was talk of Trey Lyles, but I'll be honest, I would have accepted Trey Lyles as a stretch 4 with the return of Trey Lyles. A lot of disappointment, because I think we were all like, we're going to get Malik Monk. It's going to be great. Do you have any sense of, what is your feeling on basically letting Dennis walk for a contract that I don't necessarily know if I would have paid him, but you don't get anything out of him essentially?
Yeah, so it's a two-folded thing, because look, Dennis Schroder getting $15 million a year and the opportunity to go be a starting point guard for an NBA team, that just wasn't going to happen in Detroit. That's the reality of the situation. There's no pathway to him being in the starting lineup of the Detroit Pistons, and there really wasn't a pathway to him getting $15 million annually in Detroit on a long-term contract. Looking at the Pistons cap sheet, looking at the guys they needed to bring back, looking at the holes that they needed to fill on the roster, and then looking at the future contracts, the players that are going to be eligible for contract extensions, and figuring out that roadmap. There just wasn't really a path for that type of contract for Dennis Schroder in Detroit. And that's unfortunate, because I definitely would have liked the Pistons to bring back Schroder. I think the minutes that he gave them, both in the regular season and also in the playoffs, were super, super valuable. I think he was a very positive addition to the roster. He made a very positive impact. He gave them not just some playmaking, not just some scoring, but he also added to that, a little pesky vibe, get in the other team's grill, annoy them. He kind of fit that mesh that some of the other Detroit players tend to thrive on. Thinking of you, Isaiah Stewart, thinking of you, Ron Holland. So he really kind of fitted in that regard as well. So I would have liked Detroit to keep Schroder, but I also understand the limitations that they had compared to what Sacramento ended up offering him and Schroder accepting. On the flip side, with there being this talk, and based off the reporting, all of the reporting said Malik Monk was available. He was open for business. The Kings were willing to part him. And from the reporting, the Pistons decided to not take on Malik Monk and instead take on this trade exception that I want to say is $14-ish million. So for me, especially when I look at Detroit's roster, I still believe, and this is something that I said on last week's podcast, and no other roster moves have been made since last week's show, I still think they're devoid of at least one more ball handler, one more scoring guard. And I would have absolutely taken on Malik Monk. I would have absolutely taken on Malik Monk over this trade exception that, look, in the reality, I forget the exact percentage, but in the NBA, most trade exceptions end up not getting used and expiring rather than being used. So you're taking on this trade exception that, yeah, you could use, but odds and history tell you it's going to end up expiring before you can use it for anything. So when I look at Detroit's roster, and I said this last week, I was very interested in bringing in Malik Monk. I like his scoring. I like his playmaking. I just think the Pistons need another guy that could get some buckets in volume. I think they need the guard depth. I don't want to keep talking. I know I've talked for a while here, but I know there's been a lot of talk of, well, they have Jaden Ivey stepping in. You know, they brought in Caris LeVert that's going to do some of the ball handling. In my opinion, they are one guard injury away from being completely thin on playmaking, on ball handling. I know they can kind of make it work with the combination of Cunningham, LeVert, Ivy, and Asar Thompson. That's just not enough for me should there be an injury. So I would have liked Monk for his playmaking as well. He's played both guard spots. He's really gotten much better at playing the point guard spot. He's become a much better and willing passer over time as well. So, look, I didn't love the end result of that sign-and trade. If Detroit ends up using that trade exception in the near future and is able to land somebody that impacts them, maybe it's a backup four, which is still a hole on the roster that I see. Maybe they end up with someone like PJ Washington from Dallas. I don't know. But right now, before this trade exception has been used, looking at it, I think I would have rather just taken on Malik Monk for what he could have brought to the table.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I don't know about you, but I'm not super interested in watching Caris LeVert be the backup point guard because I watched it for 2 seasons in Cleveland under JB Bickerstaff. And he was serviceable, but it's not an ideal situation. And let me just put into context about how weird this whole thing is with Dennis Schroder from a different perspective. Ty Jerome was a 6-man of the year candidate and got under $10 million a year. And Dennis Schroder, who was basically unplayably bad in Golden State, gets $15 million a year. I mean, I don't. This has been a very strange free agency. A lot of weird things happening. But I get why you wouldn't pay Dennis Schroder that amount of money. You'd probably rather take the risk with LeVert and Marcus Sasser and see where Jaden Ivey is, because if fans will remember, long ago, it seems, in his rookie season, he was turning the corner as a playmaker when Cade was out with that shin injury, and he looked like a pretty competent passer. Looked like he could run the backup point, and that could be a role that he would fill. Betting on all of those things turning out correctly, like you said, is such a huge gamble in a league where we just saw ball handlers between Indiana and Oklahoma City be absolutely critical to playoff success. And you're not throwing Marcus Sasser into a playoff rotation. That's just not going to happen. You might not feel comfortable putting Jaden Ivey in that sort of position in a playoff setting. The Pistons are going to make the playoffs. That's not a question. The East is pretty weak. They're a good team. I do think you're going to get improvements across the board. But I do worry a little bit about why wouldn't you pull the trigger on a Malik Monk, who could have been a pretty decent Malik Beasley replacement? Maybe a little more playmaking, a little bit less like knockdown shooting, but he's a movement shooter. He can get hot. And he would have, given the Pistons a guy that other teams would have to really fear shooting the basketball. Caris LeVert doesn't really have that pull. He does have downhill pull as a ball handler getting to the cup, but he doesn't have that shooting pull. So I won't be disappointed. I'll be disappointed if they do let the trade exception expire and do nothing with it, because the pick that they get from Sacramento is like 31 to 55 protected. That's not going to convey. That's just not. That's not going to happen. So you are getting a nothing pick. I'll be disappointed if they let the exception just go for nothing. But I get why you wouldn't want to pay Dennis Schroder. I understand that logic.
Yeah, if Dennis Schroeder's coming back on a 7, 8, maybe $9 million deal, it's a lot more palatable than signing up for 3 years at 15 million, especially given Trajan Langdon's commitment to maintaining cap flexibility. It's very obvious that is at the core of his roster building philosophy right now. So if you're locking in $45 million over the next 3 years to a guy that just in the reality of the situation is your backup point guard, I can understand the hesitation from Detroit's end. It will be interesting to see if what Trajan Langdon's plan to replace his minutes works. He spoke at the Pistons camp before Summer League and talked about how Caris LeVert is going to fill some of those playmaking responsibilities that Dennis Schroder left. He also talked a lot about Jaden Ivey taking on those playmaking responsibilities. Now, there are a lot of people that are completely out on Ivey being able to do that and playing the backup point guard minutes. I am not. I'm ready to give this guy more time to see if he becomes more comfortable in that kind of a role. It's unfortunate because when you look at Ivey's career, very promising rookie season where when he was tasked with doing some of the ball handling, it looked promising. Then he goes into year 2, and it's almost like that entire season you just have to like wipe away from your memory because he was in the gridlock that is Monty Williams. And then last year, year 3, he's making some real strides in certain areas of his game. Most importantly, that 3-point shot. He's a 40% 3-point shooter in 30 games, and then he suffers a season-ending injury. So you see one full rookie season from him. You get a year 2 that's just destroyed by the ineptitude that was that Detroit coaching staff. And then year 3, you're seeing that progression, and he gets injured. So I'm not ready to write off that there's a playmaking leap, that there's a ball handling leap for Jaden Ivey still. If you gave up on, Jalen Duren after the first 30 games of last year, obviously that doesn't look great considering the turnaround that he had in those, last 40 or so games of the season where he became a much better player. So these guys they're young. They're going to continue to make strides. Everything about these guys that Detroit has in their locker room raves about how hardworking they are, how committed these guys are. They're not just, hey, I made it to the NBA, I'm going to collect this paycheck and enjoy life. These guys are, from what we see, from what we hear, incredibly committed to becoming better basketball players. And we've seen that with this core as it's continued to develop year in and year out. So I'm going to give Jaden Ivey the benefit of the doubt that there's that leap there. My main point is, just for depth's sake, I just think they don't have enough. And that's not the only hole on their roster when I don't know really who their backup power forward is unless they're planning on it being Duncan Robinson. I mean, maybe they're just really going to stagger guys this year. Maybe Asar and Tobias will take up all the 4 minutes. I don't necessarily know if Ron Holland's a great option to be a 4 at his current size. Maybe he's going to put on a ton of strength and he'll be a different player than he was last year. I don't know. And that's not to say Detroit's roster can't change. There's certainly plenty of offseason left for things to happen. It doesn't just have to be via free agency. They can use that trade exception. They can make some other trade to improve the roster. But yeah, I just see some imbalance right now that has me a little bit concerned heading into next season.
And we talked about this last offseason about Marcus Sasser being really poor in Summer League last year, was not able to run the offense in Las Vegas, which is a huge red flag. And then eventually he was replaced by Dennis Schroder. And, we forgot all about Marcus Sasser being not a super good backup point guard. So there is time. Like you said, the free agency period has kind of been put at a standstill. think it's really only restricted free agent like movement that is the talk right now with Jonathan Kuminga, and Cam Thomas has no market for anything, and there's one other restricted free agent I'm missing.
Quentin Grimes.
I forget. Quinn Grimes also at a complete deadlock. So that's like just mucking up the gears of free agency. But there is time. And I was curious about the point guard numbers for Jaden Ivey. Cleaning the Glass has him. This is 23-24, which is the year that Cade, was he out? No, shin injury.
That was 22,
No.
23.
22. So Jaden Ivey spent 40% of his time playing the point. It wasn't very good, but again, that was not a very good season. The year after that, 23-24, in the doghouse of Monty Williams, he spent 54% of his time at point guard. And this is again per Cleaning the Glass. So whether, this is their metric for how they measure where a player is playing. When he was at point guard, the offense was just a tick below league average in the 47th percentile. And that's not very good, but again, the Pistons were pretty horrible then, with the likes of like Isaiah Livers, taking up a lot of time. So you put Ivy at point with like competent players around him, that's probably a lot.
Yeah.
That's probably a lot better. So he spent more than half of his time playing the point. I think that's something that they could explore in great depth this upcoming season, because they need to find a role for him. I mean, it's pretty clear that this is now the moment, and we haven't talked about his extension and Jalen Duren's extension either. This is the moment to see where he fits in with this, playoff roster.
Yeah, and you're starting to see those rookie extensions kick in. I mean, we've seen it now in the last few days with Paolo Banchero, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams. But in my mind, those are all they're the obvious guys that you're going to max out.
Of course, yes,
they're the
absolutely.
obvious guys that you're going to hand the rookie extension to, and you're not going to blink at it. With guys like Ivy, especially with Ivy, I mean, as I painted the plus side of looking optimistically at what's happened the last few years, why you need to remain optimistic. Looking at it on the flip side, when you're talking about committing, millions of dollars annually to these players, you have to consider his second year, despite the situation he was in, was not good. In his third year, he didn't play. He played less than half the season. So if I'm Detroit, unless Jaden Ivey's like, hey, I'll sign on a cheap deal, which I'm sure he would rather play out this next season and show he can play. I don't think there's a rush to re-sign Ivy. Kind of feel the same way about Jalen Duren. I don't think the Pistons should feel the pressure to engage on extension talks with these guys, when if they're smart, they're going to be asking for $25-30 million a year annually. And I just don't think that Detroit needs to make that decision yet. I think they need to see, which is another big part of Trajan Langdon's philosophy right now, internal development. I think they need to see what that internal development is, not just for these individuals, but for also the team and how the team looks with these two individuals playing key roles before they commit that long-term money to them. So that's where my head's at with extensions now that we're really starting to see them come to fruition with some of these guys that have signed this week.
Yeah. And just in the shooting guard realm, and we'll get into summer league after this. In the shooting guard realm, Colin Sexton was traded for Yusuf Nurkic. Blake Monk is apparently impossible to get rid of. Those are two shooting guards who are equally or better than Jaden Ivey right now. Maybe the ceiling's obviously not as high, but I think Colin Sexton was like the poor man's Jaden Ivey, essentially getting downhill. Shot was a little wonky, but he was fast. Can get to the cup. So it's
that
like
was
if those guys.
Weird trade by Utah.
That was a huge nothing trade.
They needed to keep Colin Sexton, or not. Colin Sexton is still this super prime valuable asset. But are you telling me he's really worth a salary dump Yusuf Nurkic? That's it? I mean, the Pistons could have definitely used a Colin Sexton type of player. So I have to feel like there's got to be more of a market out there for these guys. Even if, these smaller volume scoring guards aren't the most valuable archetype in the NBA, I still think they have value. I mean, if you can shoot if you can dribble, these are prime NBA skills. So I don't know. I think Colin Sexton could help a good team. I don't think he's just an empty stats guy on a bad team player. I genuinely believe, even if it's not in a starting role, he could give good minutes for a playoff team.
He just hasn't ever been on one. He
Right.
was on the rebuild Cavs, and he's on the we're not tanking, but definitely tanking Utah Jazz. So
Right. Right.
I mean, it's just, but that's also why, because I was talking about trading Ivy. If that's the going rate for NBA players who are right now probably better than Ivy, then I don't know what Ivy's market is. And you can make the argument that Ivy's better. Certainly, ceiling is a lot higher than those two guys. But right now, with his injury history, we just don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how they fill the backup point guard. I think Ivy at the backup two makes a lot of sense, but we'll see what Trajan Langdon's big plan is. Moving into summer league, your favorite time of the year. The Pistons didn't have a lottery pick. In fact, they only have like a handful of players that guys who just generally watch the team may even recognize. You're the summer league guy. You love it every year. Do you still have the same love, even though there's no fifth overall pick to watch?
I mean, I would be absolutely lying if I said like they're not going to be as exciting, or they're going to be as exciting as they've been in years past. Like they just don't have the same talent on their roster. I mean, think back to the summer league where it was like Cade Cunningham, at the time Killian Hayes, was Sekou on it too? Like they've just had some bang up summer league rosters. Obviously, there was Jaden Ivey, there was Jalen Duren. I mean, they had Cade and Isaiah Stewart on the summer league team, Sadiq Bey. Like they've had some banger summer league rosters over the years, and they've had some guys that have ended up making their roster or earning a two-way contract because they were really good for them in summer league. So this year, it's definitely a weaker roster. You look at the guys that are on contracts with Detroit. It's three main contract guys: Ron Holland, Bobi Klintman, and Chaz Lanier. And then they're two-way players: Dennis Jenkins and Tolu Smith. So outside of that, I think probably the most intriguing player on their roster is Bryce Williams, a undrafted rookie from Nebraska. I think he could make a good impact in summer league, maybe earn that final two-way spot that Detroit has available. But other than that, I mean, it's like Zakai Ziegler from Tennessee. Like he was a fun college player, but just due to his size, and he's probably not an NBA player. They've got TJ Bickerstaff, nephew of JB Bickerstaff. They've got Trevor Keels, who was at one point a solid prospect at Duke, but hasn't really panned out into anything in the NBA. So again, it's not like a flashy, it's not like a, hey, we're full of NBA roster that Detroit has been home to in the past. But, look, Ron Holland plays what, 1-2 games this year. I mean, that's what the summer league has turned into. They used to play like every game. Maybe they missed one, but now a lot of these top guys end up playing 1 or 2 and then getting rested or pulled out for whatever reason, which I think is lame. People are paying good money to go to summer league now. Like it's not $5 to get in like it used to be,
You're
or
right.
It didn't, or like back when it was in Orlando and it was like closed off to anyone but NBA personnel and media. Like people pay pretty expensive prices nowadays for a summer league level game to get in. So I'd like to see these guys play more. I also think it's just good for their development to play in these types of game situations in front of crowds against NBA level players and below NBA level players. I just think it's good for them. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm still excited. If you're listening to this on the first day that it comes out on Friday, that the Pistons play tonight at 6:00. I'll be seated. I'm ready to see what happens. I'm very interested to see what guys like Ron Holland and Bobi Klintman look like in year 2. And I'm ready to see Chaz Lanier at the NBA level, because this is the guy that I had on my big board for Detroit when I was looking at the prospects they might want to draft.
And that's a guy who could get minutes for the Pistons this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, an injury to anybody in that guard rotation, and Chaz Lanier could be getting not an insignificant amount of minutes. So I would definitely be watching him for sure. And Ron Holland, of course. I saw Kent State grad Sincere Carey on here. I watched Sincere Carey when I was in grad school. I can't believe he made it to a summer league team. Sincere Carey sounds like like a Giannis move. Like he gave a sincere carry to the basket. Yeah, I'm not obviously not as enthralled with summer league as we have been in the past because we don't have a top 5 pick to watch, but there's still some interesting players. It's also a good thing that we don't have to do this because that means the Pistons are good, and we've been waiting for this for like half a decade of doing podcasts to talk about it. And just to prove your point about the 2021 summer league roster, which is absolutely loaded. It was Cade, it was Killian, it was Isaiah Livers, it was Isaiah Stewart, it was Saban Lee, it was Sadiq Bey, it was Sekou Doumbouya, it was Jamarco Pickett, Luka Garza, and Davidis Servidis.
Look, I just think about it. All those names, whether they were a
Studs.
standard contract or a two-way contract, were on Detroit's NBA roster. Like,
You're right.
they had, what was that, 8, 9, 10 guys that
Two,
were
three.
on their NBA roster that played on their summer league team.
Tyler Cook was on the NBA roster too, right? Because he was there.
He was. That was one of
1, 2, 3, 4,
mid-season
5,
acquisitions
6, 7,
tanking.
8, 9. I'm seeing 10. I'm seeing 10 players on their summer league roster who played for the Pistons either that year or the year after. That is insane. That is insane. I mean, half the guys on the roster this year aren't even going to make it in the G League. They're going to be overseas. Wow. That was the summer of stardom.
Last thing I'll say on summer league, because I've had a lot of people say, or tell me, like, the Pistons don't have an issue at the 4 because they have Bobi Klintman, who's just apparently ready to step in. This is, for me, from seeing Bobi Klintman in the G League last year, I would need to see a much better player compared to then versus now. Not saying he was necessarily like bad in the G League, but there would need to be some growth, some serious growth for me to feel like this is a guy that is now ready to play NBA regular, consistent rotation minutes for a team that is a playoff roster. I mean, I think that's fair to say. So I will. I'll be watching him with intent, just as I will be with Holland and Lanier, and we'll see.
Yep, we'll see. And summer league starts tonight if you're listening to this on Friday. So we always are interested in what you all think about it as well. Are you going to be tuning into summer league? Are there any players that you want to watch, even if they're not on the Pistons? I mean, look, the Cooper Flag and Bronny James thing is getting hype, and I think the Mavs play another team where they're on ESPN, I think. But either way, talk to us about what you're looking at in summer league. How do you feel about the Malik Monk and Dennis Schroder like disaster train of what are the Pistons going to do? Are they going to get anything? Are they going to get nothing? And then they ended up getting like half of nothing. So leave us your comments and tell us how you feel about the whole situation. We love interacting with people who listen to the podcast. It's one of the more fun things out of everything that we get to do in covering the team is interacting with all of our listeners. Even if you are like heated about something, we'll get heated right back.
Even for the people that blew up Palace of Pistons YouTube comments because they got mad that Jasper called Ron Holland 6'5" instead of 6'7" last week.
Ooh.
Type of thing.
Ooh. Hey, that makes a big difference. Isn't Ace Bailey like 3 inches shorter than what Rutgers had listed him as?
Yeah, did they list him at 6'8" and he's 6'6"? I feel like that's
something like that. Something like that. And they're not blowing up those comments. Aaron, anything else you want to touch on before we wrap up this edition of the podcast?
No, this was fun. This was good. I'm ready for Summer League. I'm ready to really get a look at Ron Holland. And like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the John Beilein interview, and hopefully we can continue to do some more stuff like that in the podcast ahead.
Yeah, John Beilein would be a great interview. He is probably a wealth of basketball knowledge. He's been around the game for so long. It's like you could probably talk to him for hours and hours and still have so much more to ask him. So, yes, we hope you all enjoyed that interview. And who knows, we'll maybe be getting another guest here or there as maybe the most exciting Pistons season is like fast approaching. It's like almost the middle of July already. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm
it's
ready
crazy.
for basketball back at this point. I
I don't
don't
know.
need
The
much
Tigers
of
are
a
pretty good.
ball. You can you can give me a couple weeks in June, you can give me a couple weeks in July, but by the time August rolls around, I'm so ready for basketball to be back.
It'll be back before you even know it. And then we'll be podcasting in November or December. You're going to be like, what the hell just happened? And we hope that you'll be joining us along the way. So, like I said at the beginning of the show, if you haven't already subscribed to us on Substack, please take a moment or two to do that. We really appreciate it. The links to the Substack should be in the show notes or in the YouTube comments or wherever you get your podcasts. For my co-host, Aaron Johnson, I'm Mike Anguilano. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of the Palace Pistons Podcast, part of the Believe Network, and we will see you all next time.